Today.
Hi, I'm good.
Fine. Are you ready to answer this question for the math project?
Sure.
Okay, fine. The first question is, what was the hardest topic in math when you were in grade 9?
Grade 9, limits.
Oh, limits. Oh my god. That's the hardest topic. I agree with you. Now the second question. What are your struggles during studying math?
Struggles? I'm not really good. I don't understand why there are letters.
Oh my god. Okay, fine. Oh, okay, fine. The third question. How are the teachers in Iman? How do you find them?
They're okay.
Okay.
They have to be a certain way for us.
Oh, okay. Nice. And the last question is, what were the techniques you were using while you were in grade 9 to study math easier, to make it for you easier?
To make math easy to me. What tricks?
Yeah.
Nothing, no tricks. We had to do a lot of exercises. And my math teacher was really strict. She was really strict.
Okay. Thank you very much, teacher. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Let's start our presentation with the overall data. Here, you will see whether the students from 10A1 to 11A2 did poorly or well. To summarize, 13 students did well and 7 did not. Here is a bar chart representing the data. The blue represents students who did well and the pink represents students who did poorly.
Now let's move on to the other graph, which is the line graph. Here, the students who did well is the line in pink, whereas the students who did poorly is the line in blue. As you can see, grade 10A1 has the most students who did poorly, whereas grade 11A1 has the most students who did well. In the overall graph, majority of the students did well.
Here, you'll see how many students did well and did poorly on certain subjects. 12 students did well in linear equations, 10 students did well in linear inequalities, and 13 students did well in quadratic equations. There were 8 students who did bad in linear equations, 10 students who did bad in linear inequalities, and 7 students who did bad in quadratic equations. And to summarize, quadratic equations was mostly answered correctly by all. Here is a line graph and a bar chart representing the data. The color red represents the students who did well, and the color yellow represents the students who did poorly. Let's discuss about the specific topics now, starting with linear equations. And again, the color red represents the students who answered correctly, and the color yellow represents the students who did wrongly. So we put the data in tally form, and by that we know that 12 students did correctly and 8 students did wrongly. Here is the percentage of students who did correctly and wrongly in linear equations. As you can see, 60% of the students did correctly and 40% of the students did wrongly. Now moving on to our next topic, which is linear inequalities. In 10A1 and 10A2, the majority did wrongly, and in 11A1 and 11A2, the majority did correctly. Whereas in 10A3, the same number of students did well as the same number of students who did wrongly. And so the tallies show that 10 students did correctly and 10 students did not do it correctly. And here you can see in the percentage that 50% did wrong and 50% did correctly. Now moving on to our next topic, which is quadratic equations. As you can see in the graph, surprisingly, none of the students did bad in 11A1. Overall, you can see that the majority of students did well in quadratic equations, which results in the percentage that 35% did wrongly and 65% did correctly. We came up with a solution based off our questionnaires. Our overall results show that majority of the students did badly in linear inequalities. Our solution for that is for students to practice more of linear inequalities instead of practicing more quadratic equations. This is our solution because majority of the people did well in quadratic equations, whereas they did not do well in linear inequalities. And with that, we are now done with our maths project presentation. The members of this group is Shakira, me, Ali, Ridwan, and Tariq.